Today I'm painting a cute, whimsical, wonky house using Gansai Tambi watercolours and a little bit of gouache. So I'm going to be painting with the Meeden watercolour paper. This is the cold press one. It's got a nice texture on. I would have preferred to use a hot press for this one, but I've got this hot press here and it's just too small. So I'm pretty sure that these are the same manufacturer. In fact, I think I've heard someone else saying that this Meeden watercolour paper is basically this Bao paper. And I'm also going to be using the Gansai Tambi watercolours and also some Holbein Gouache at the end. So I'm just adding a frame with some washi tape just to make sure I don't go right to the edges, and it gives me a nice even gap all the way around. So the idea today is to just create a basic kind of wonky, out of proportion house. I'm deliberately making it as kind of wonky as I can, and then just concentrate more on the shading and the colour, and I'm hoping it'll look nice at the end. Now I will provide the outline for this if you want to just trace mine or you want to just create your own. It's up to you, but I'll put that on my Patreon so that you can just download that if you need to. I'm just going to try and keep it loose, whimsical, so it's just kind of experimental really.
Soft, turn the key and cooler on. Push a pause for relief. Free pass, you don't even have to ask to be the cat in the sun.
I'm going to start off with Horizon Blue and Indigo. And you can just use whatever colours you have if you don't have these paints. And I'm going to use a small mop brush. I got this one from Meeden. I think I got it in an advent calendar. And I'm also going to use some of this Mars yellow. So we've got blue and orange basically, which go really, really nice together. And I'm just going to paint the Horizon Blue, a really kind of light watery application all over the main parts, so this middle section here and then both sides.
Someday I will see the whole deal through. Today I've got better things to do. Okay, to leave a little bit undone.
I'm just dropping a little touch of the Mars yellow just to the edge there. I'm trying to make some variation in the colour. I don't want it all to be kind of neat and perfect. And then while that's still wet, I'm going in with the indigo kind of around the edges, just dropping a bit of that in, wet in wet, making sure that that indigo isn't too watery, and then kind of down the side of this little tower bit at the front. I'm adding some of the Mars yellow just to these tree areas. I'm just making these kind of loose. So I'm basically first stage putting the colour down that it's going to be, just like the first layer of colour on everything, on the flowers, the roof, the house, and then we'll just add more layers and more details over the top in different stages. But before I move onto the roof, I'm going to dry the blue on the house just so that they don't run into each other.
Be the cat in the sun. Be the cat in the sun. Set aside every empty spreadsheet line and loosen up grind. Simmer down, settle back and mess around.
While the roof's still wet, I'm adding some more concentrated paint around the edges, especially towards the tower part in the middle. I want it to be really dark there to make that part stand forward. It'll kind of give the illusion that it's further forward. And then I'm adding that Mars yellow to the ground area as well. I'm leaving the middle part because where the path's going to be, that's going to be a different colour. And we've got some nice stepping stones on there. So just dropping some stronger colouring wet in wet and trying to kind of vary the texture of that grassy part. And then using the indigo, quite a strong mix, I'm going to paint all of the windows in this nice dark colour. It really makes the windows pop out really well. Right, now I'm on to the second layer. So I'm wetting the whole area of the blue, and then I'm getting some really strong indigo and getting right in those corners to make that tower stand out. So I'm going underneath the roof and kind of a little bit around the edges, but mainly to this middle part and the bottom, and then just kind of blend it out as best I can. And then I decided to add a little bit of a decorative edge to the roof. So I'm making it look like there's kind of some little curved roof tiles here. And then I just keep adding more and more of the dark colour right from the pan as well, so that it's nice and strong. If it's nice and strong, it doesn't spread too far. If it's too wet, the paint, it'll just spread out of control. I keep on washing my brush, drying it off so that it's only damp, and then you can use that damp brush to blend the dark area into the light area. And now I'm on to this front middle section. So I'm trying to give the illusion that it's standing forward. If you look at the bottom area, how I've brought the base of that below the base of the back area, that's kind of giving the illusion that it's further forward. And then I'm making the colour overall lighter, so that also gives the illusion that it's further forward. So I'm not putting as much shading on this, and I want it to look like it's got a bit of an orange glow to the right hand side, which is why I'm adding a little bit more orange. And I'm trying to keep the edges kind of crisp white. I find that every time I try and do this type of thing, it looks like it's a paper cutout in the front. I don't always quite pull off the illusion that I'm looking for, and it ends up looking like it's kind of a flat piece of paper sticking in the front. But to be honest with you, I actually quite like that look. I do like it when it turns out like that, even though it's not intentional. So now I'm adding more depth. So I'm going in the same that I did for the front of the house, I'm doing with the roof. So I've wet the whole area, and then I'm just dabbing in some much stronger colour to either side of the tower area, and then just dropping in bits of colour just to give some uneven kind of texture to the roof. And I want it to get a little bit darker right in there, right in that corner. So I'm going to use some of this yellow brown just to darken that up a little bit more. And I'm just going to go right around all the rest of the little orange parts, all the rest of the windows and the little peak roof, the door, and just add more depth to that colour. I'm just dropping in some of the much stronger Mars yellow. Now I'm moving on to this doorway. I'm adding a little bit more detail. So I've got the yellow brown colour, and I'm going around the edge of the inner door just to make it look like it's more set back from the frame. And then I've got some clear water, adding that to the middle area and taking it up to that colour and letting them blend into each other. And then I'm adding a little bit more of the Mars yellow into the middle. I'm trying to give it a bit of a streaky look as well. And then a little bit more of the yellow brown across the bottom. And just kind of blend it upwards a little bit, just so that it looks like a wooden panelled door. I do go over this with gouache as well, so this is just a base layer. It looks really nice now, but unfortunately with watercolour it never looks the same when it's dried. I wish it would just stay this lovely intense colour, but it doesn't. It just kind of zaps that vibrance once it's dry. Yeah, so I'm just adding some more streaks with that brown. Right, now for the final part, I'm going to add some details in gouache. So I'm going to use this tiny little brush and paint some of the little window frames. I'm using this lovely amber colour mixed with some white to make it nice and light. So if you don't have these particular paints, these Holbein Gouache, it's more of a like a really intense rusty colour, a nice orangey rusty colour, and I've just mixed white into that to get it to show up more against the blue. And I'm rounding off these corners a little bit here, and then I'm trying to make the frame stand out against the blue, and I'm just trying to lighten it in some parts. But I do keep going back and forward with this to try and get it to stand out. So I'm just a little bit of experimentation. So I'm going in and out with some much lighter colour, and then I end up just putting some white straight in there and mixing it in just to kind of brighten it up a little bit. I just don't want it to be one even colour all the way around. I wanted to give it some texture, make it look a little bit kind of uneven. Yeah, and then I'm just doing the same for all the other frames as well, just trying to kind of give them some character. I tend to just try and make things perfect automatically, and I think everybody's the same. It's difficult to, the brain tries to make you make things even for some reason, and I think this is something that probably most artists struggle with. of darker paint and just adding it to the edges of those inside frames, and it really gives a nice illusion that they're more set back. Just add a little bit of shading on the window ledges as well. And I'm adding even more darkness again to this doorway. You can see how much it's faded now that it's dried. So I'm just going in there and redefining those panels in the door and the edge. And this time I'm going to remember to put the doorknob on, because most doors I forget to add the doorknob. A little bit of extra shading onto this middle section because it was just looking a little bit too flat. So I'm going either side of the doorway, but I'm leaving that kind of white edge just so you can see where the edge of the whole building is. Just kind of blending that out, and then I'm going in with I've made some really pale blue gouache, and I'm adding a pale blue frame around some of those windows as well. And then I'm using some of that pale blue to go back over these edges just to help that blend a little bit. I'm really loving using this gouache. I think I'm gonna make more gouache videos going forward, or gouache and watercolour combined, because it is a lot of fun gouache. I really like it. After using watercolour so much and not being able to put a light over a dark, it's just such a novelty to be able to like put a nice opaque lighter colour over the top. Now I'm just going to go around and add some more darkness to some of the areas, such as the window panes and just some of the shadows on the windowsills and everything. And now I'm going to move on to all the foliage in the trees and everything. So for this large kind of tree to the right, I'm using just kind of oranges and reds, and I'm just kind of swirling it around. I'm just trying to make it loose and free, and I think it looks quite effective actually. And I'm just blobbing in different oranges and reds in there. For the flowers and the foliage that's going to be in front of the house, I'm painting it white first of all, just so that the colours will stand out more. If I paint the colours directly onto the blue house, they'll dry a little bit dull. So I'm painting them all white, and then I'll put the colour over the top of the white once it's dried. The only thing with this is you do have to be a little bit careful not to activate that white underneath. It can be a little bit tricky, but if you just do it nice and softly, it it should be okay. And you can always use acrylic gouache as well. Sometimes in the past I've used white acrylic gouache. I'm just carefully painting in some tree branches for this larger tree. And then these colours, I've just kind of made them up. I made this up by mixing some other gouaches because I didn't have this colour. So you really don't need the exact brand that I've got. But if you are using the same brand as me, I will list all the colours in the video description below. So I'm just painting in some nice little foliage shapes, just making them random, trying to cover those pencil marks that I made earlier. I have to leave my pencil marks quite dark so that it'll show up on camera, but if I wasn't recording this, I would make those pencil marks a lot lighter. This area here, I'm trying to fill in all that white space to try and balance the picture out. So after painting in some of the grasses and foliage, I'm just kind of like dropping in some colour there. Some of it's quite watered down as well. I'm just trying to kind of fill that space in. And I've painted a few darker bits of foliage as well, mixing a green with the dark blue. And then with that dark colour, I've painted a strip right across the bottom just to finish that bottom off. And then I'm taking in some more of that browny amber colour, and I've just taken it up to that line and then spreading it out a little bit further down towards the bottom. And then I'm just adding a little bit of watery green in between those stepping stones, and hopefully that should just kind of finish that off really nice. And then I'm just going to go over all the little white flower areas and add some colour. I've got a little terracotta pot here and some little red flowers, orange flowers. I've left some of them white and just add a little dot of orange in the middle, and that's kind of it for the foliage. Just adding some little red drops and some green drops into the background just to try and fill up some of the white space a little bit of shadowing on the stepping stones, just a little strip across the bottom. And then I think that's it for the paint. I'll just leave that, get the tape off, see what it looks like without that tape, which is the best tape I've ever had. That tape was from Catnip. I bought that from her website and it's literally such a good washi tape. Now I'm using a black pencil and I'm just drawing in some little roof tiles on this little bit here, as though it's like just a little mini roof going over that window. And then using the brown pencil, which is Baked Earth Inktense, I'm just adding a little bit of shading just to some areas that I think need it, just to kind of finish it off. It's giving it kind of a mixed media kind of finish. So there we go. That's the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and as always, if you do want to download the outline, it'll be on my Patreon page, and that is linked below, and I'll put all of the colours that I've used in the description below as well. So thank you very much for watching, and I should have another video up next Sunday.
To leave a little bit undone and be the cat in the sun. Be the cat in the sun. Set aside every empty spreadsheet.